Some breaking news now. US President-elect Donald Trump has named Elon Musk and former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy to lead the Department of Government Efficiency.
But you can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that is responsive to the people.
President Donald Trump is all in on Elon Musk.
You know, I'm a person that believes in high IQs, and his is about as high as they get.
While this weekend, Democrats warning that Musk may turn to cutting benefits for Americans after he criticized Social Security last week.
So Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time.
President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No, that's not happening. But Elon's done an amazing job. Isn't it nice to have smart people that we can rely on? Don't we want that?
But look, President Musk this morning made it clear, with all his vast government experience, which is basically he became rich on the federal government, that he doesn't want Republicans to pass this. And seemingly Vice President Trump kind of backed him up then at that point. And what it says about the politics is this is going to be a messy 4 years.
In the last hour, our team watched as the signage at the USAID building came down.
The USAID and Department of Government Efficiency offices are within 2 blocks of one another in Washington, D.C. The Department of Government Efficiency has been employed by the Trump administration to downsize the federal government, purging entire agencies. USAID, America's administrative soft power, was the department's first target. USAID did not used to be a household name, despite the agency's 60-year history of public operation, and for good reason. The inner workings of the United States federal government are, for the average American, incomprehensibly intricate, so an unenforced opacity existed between the general public and the administrative arms, until the induction of one man's will on governmental affairs.
The story of DOGE starts with the company behind me, Tesla Motors, which Elon Musk was not an original founder of, but was onboarded in the early 2000s to.
Elon became the CEO of Tesla in 2008, which has since grown to be his largest company in terms of revenue and market value. Similar to the revenue structure of his other company, SpaceX, much of Tesla's success is contingent upon dealings with the United States government. In the first 3 quarters of 2024, regulatory credits accounted for $2.1 billion of Tesla's revenue. Many states require car manufacturers to sell a certain amount of emissionless vehicles, and if they don't, they have to buy regulatory credits from green companies like Tesla, which profit greatly. Further, the Biden administration introduced an electric vehicle mandate that raised standards for vehicles to compel manufacturers to have electric vehicles make up between 30 and 56% of new vehicles in 2030. A policy heavily benefiting Tesla. Elon's SpaceX also has many exclusive space launch contracts with both the Department of Defense and NASA, helping to monopolize their market. Elon's growing influence was followed by an array of different controversies and a clear appetite for power. In 2019, Elon Musk came under fire for tweeting "We will coup whoever we want" after State Department involvement in overturning the results of an election in Bolivia, a sequence of events beneficial to Elon, as the opposition party would be receptive to lithium extraction for Tesla car batteries. Worker exploitation at the hand of Musk's SpaceX directive resulted in over 600 workplace injuries since 2014, with the pressure to produce fast results culminating in fatalities, skull fractures, and amputations as a result of skipped safety procedures. By 2021, animosity was growing between Musk and the Biden administration. Biden had snubbed Musk from an American electric vehicle summit, despite Tesla being the lead electric vehicle manufacturer. Musk was not invited due to Tesla's role in union busting. By 2021, it was the only major car manufacturer that did not have its workers represented by a union.
Wall Street didn't build America. The middle class built America. And unions built the middle class.
I mean, I disagree with the idea of unions, but perhaps for a reason that is different than people may expect, which is I just don't like anything which creates kind of a lords and peasants sort of thing.
Over the course of the next few years, SpaceX also faced many federal obstacles from the FAA, which delayed launches due to failure to meet regulatory requirements and safety standards. The whole saga left Elon bitter and power-hungry, turning to potential new leadership which would better secure his bidding.
Around the same time, Elon Musk first experimented with the idea of buying Twitter, which he has now renamed to X. There was a lot of speculation as to what the exact motive was, And retrospectively, it was most likely meant to serve as a vessel for getting Donald Trump elected, which it successfully did. Elon Musk personally funneled hundreds of millions of dollars to the Trump campaign with the only expectation that he would be entrusted with downsizing the federal government if Donald Trump were to be elected, which is how DOGE emerged and he was appointed to its head leadership position.
What is Project 2025? It is everyone here. This is the movement. We are going to be prepared day one, January 20, 2025, to hit the ground running as conservatives to really help the next president.
Elon Musk wasn't the only one interested in directing the affairs of the future Trump administration. The Heritage Foundation, a prominent conservative think tank dating its power back to the Reagan era, had long been hoping to enact monumental conservative changes in the American bureaucracy, and explicated their goals in the highly controversial political manifesto, Project 2025.
As you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025.
During the campaign, the Trump camp aimed to distance itself from the project and its contributors, but since his inauguration, its affiliates have shaped the administration, making up 70% of his cabinet. Elon's tech right and the traditionalist conservatives of the Heritage Foundation had their ideological differences, but quickly found common enemies to target through Musk's newfound department. Typically, agencies Musk already had personal qualms with that were outlined in Project 2025 as needing reform.
Flight jet 560, hold right there, sir. Don't move. Hold position 560. 23. 2504, how'd that happen?
Communications of air traffic control are almost entirely indecipherable to the average person. Going into the field is unforgiving, and the training is rigorous. ATC is part of the FAA, one of the first agencies duly targeted by the Heritage Foundation and Elon Musk, setting the blueprint for the administration's future downsizing efforts. The Heritage Foundation has long had a distaste for the FAA. There are many allusions made in Project 2025 to the necessity of privatizing parts of it and restructuring others, specifically its ATC burden. In the 80s, air traffic controllers went on strike after their union couldn't come to an agreement with the FAA. Reagan, largely guided by a leadership mandate crafted by the Heritage Foundation, chose to crack down hard on the strikes, giving air traffic controllers 48 hours to return to work or lose their jobs.
It is for this reason that I must tell those who fail to report for duty this morning they are in violation of the law, and if they do not report for work within 48 hours, they have forfeited their jobs and will be terminated.
Following the end of the period allotted by the administration, the workers continued their strike and were met with mass firings. Tens of thousands of workers were fired by the Reagan administration and barred from being rehired. To this day, the agency has not recovered, and the ATC continues facing shortages. The Heritage Foundation still celebrates the decision as bold and brave, and hopes to apply similar pressures to the agency in the modern era. Musk has a similar disdain for the FAA, which has served as an obstacle for his Rush SpaceX projects, penalizing him for airspace burden and safety compliance failures. In the wake of Trump's election, the FAA director preemptively resigned, and following Trump's inauguration, DOGE immediately began laying off FAA and ATC employees. For the Heritage Foundation, these were the formative steps necessary to apply privatization pressure on the FAA and force it to operate more like a business. For Musk, who forced FAA employees into signing NDAs in hopes of acquiring favorable contracts for his company Starlink, this was the perfect avenue to expanding his government-sanctioned monopolies and penalizing those previously in his way. And all of it could be passed off as a cost-cutting measure for the American taxpayer.
$45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of.
The Heritage Foundation and Elon Musk followed the same dismantling blueprint with USAID. USAID was established during the Kennedy era to serve as a means of propagating American soft power. The agency is not without controversy, as it has been employed by the State Department as a means of leverage, often using humanitarian aid as a bargaining tool to advance American geopolitical power, and discourage oppositional sentiment. In one instance, USAID refused to provide critical famine aid to India until it, quote, tempered criticisms, unquote, of the US involvement in Vietnam. However, it stands in contrast to the rest of the State Department bureaucracy and its largely peaceful apparatus, and the Trump administration's qualms with it were not rooted in some anti-imperialist or hegemonic ideology. Project 2025 devotes an entire chapter to USAID. Certain parts of the chapter correctly detail the fundamental issues of the aid organization. As it states, the agency's aid burden has shifted largely from natural crises to man-made conflicts. However, this can in large part be attributed to the destabilization extending from other branches of the bureaucracy's failures, branches the administration has not been targeting at the same level. The Heritage Foundation's concerns regarding USAID are largely rooted in its advancement of left-wing ideology. The Democratic Party's hand extends further in the bureaucracy than the Republicans. The Heritage Foundation's desire, based solely on the outline of Project 2025, was seemingly to not abolish the agency, but fundamentally repurpose it, to apply it in an inverse, conservative-favoring role. However, Musk spearheaded the effort to annihilate it in its entirety, and the heritage-riddled administration quickly fell in line. Musk likely had a conflict of interest, as USAID was actively investigating the role of Starlink, which it commissioned for the Ukraine war in aiding Russia. Russians had been caught using Starlink in the region, and its safety had been called into question entirely, despite Musk's reassurances. The loss of confidence in Starlink would pose an existential threat to Musk's governmental contracts. I wanted to get a clearer picture of the inner workings of USAID and its battle with the Trump administration, so I flew to D.C. for an interview with a member of the American Foreign Service Association, litigating on behalf of the now terminated USAID.
I think that DOGE is targeting lots and lots of various parts of the government, Social Security Administration, parts of the Department of Defense, Veterans Affairs, but they started with USAID, and I think part of the reason is that its mission is to provide a support for countries abroad that will help us to make sure that conflicts don't spread, diseases don't enter our country, people don't starve to death who have been displaced by war. Why would you start with USAID? There is mostly no domestic constituency, so if you target them, the blowback in congressional districts won't be much. One area, of course, is that USAID purchases $3-4 billion worth of agricultural products to feed those starving people I mentioned. And so it does have an effect on farmers. In fact, they had contracts, but those contracts have been, if not canceled, at least delayed up to now. A lot of our USAID officers are operating in very dangerous places, Congo, Sudan, elsewhere. And because their lives are at risk, we have a mechanism that they will be notified if there's danger in their area, and bandits operating or revolutionaries coming into their area. When this was done by DOGE, they cut off all the communications, and in essence what they did was they exposed those people in the field that couldn't get regular communications except through their cell phones on this special arrangement. It left them vulnerable to harm. The issue is not so much government reorganization, efficiency, it is the way in which they've gone about doing this without regard to the safety and security of the people who are, quite frankly, sacrificing for all of us in the U.S. We have a number of court cases in process, and we have several what are called temporary restraining orders. There is, I think, a growing understanding that the slash and burn tactics are not the best way to go about doing this.
As USAID found itself in legal limbo, DOGE continued its targeted deconstruction of federal agencies, and the effects began to be felt locally, mobilizing thousands to protest. We went to one of the protests in Atlanta to get a sense of people's frustration with DOGE.
Musk! Deport Elon Musk! Deport Elon Musk! Deport Elon Musk! Hands off Medicare!
Not one person voted for Elon Musk. Nobody. Has no business cutting government funds, getting his greasy fingers into everybody's private information. It destroys all the rules, and that lets the next one, if it's another Republican, do whatever he wants and go 10 steps further. Seeing a lot of turnouts in heavily red Republican districts. People are disgusted. They are yelling, they are screaming, just like the people in this crowd here today, because they don't like the direction this country is going.
We get funding from everywhere, so every little bit, and so when the feds go, like Medicaid, this is really personal for me.
Small government-assisted programs completely out of the public eye were hit hard. Kathy, a social worker, explained to us that she worked in special needs job support. Her role consisted of aiding in the development of schedules and manager-worker communications between the mentally disabled and their employers. No profit motive would ever subsidize this field of work, as is true for countless others, and the elimination of federal funds had risked the program into a funding drought. As countless news stories of national parks and human health services being gutted circled the media cycle, Elon's public favorability, and in turn his company's worths, started to plummet. And in March, he seemed to have been dealt a fatal blow.
This is bulletproof.
I mean, look, in terms of imagination, I think I have a great imagination. Who else but this guy would design this, and everybody on the road is looking at it?
Unlike Elon Musk, the Heritage Foundation is a think tank, a coalescence of ideology-bound individuals with vast governing experience not interested in the personal vendettas of a billionaire opportunist. And as an organization, it never lets one person accrue so much personality that it would clash with the ego of Trump. Their success is in their digression. Embedded in the pages of Project 2025 was a plan to purge the EV favoritism which had benefited Elon, prioritizing the oil industries which provided the Heritage Foundation with financial sustenance over the course of many decades. As Elon became more combative and authoritative and his relationship with the president soured, the foundation, through its presidential aides, pushed for the elimination of the EV mandate, a move which sent Elon spiraling. A feud erupted between the president and Musk, and as Elon's reputation fell to his erratic behavior, the Heritage Foundation remained silent, standing at the president's shoulder, letting Elon absorb the public pushback of its controversial agenda and continuing to advance it without any name recognition.
I'm very disappointed in Elon.
A split between President Donald Trump and Elon Musk exploded on social media. It began days ago with Musk criticizing the president's big budget and border bill on X, calling it a big, ugly bill, arguing that it will add to the deficit, even pushing Republicans to kill the bill.
The think tank's aides remained steadfast in their agenda, digressing at the side of the president, falling in line into their roles as a covenant for enacting their will. And the fall of Elon means nothing for them except for a new birth, a new year, a new mandate in Project 2025.